My name is Ann Daniels, and I want to tell you a story about life, about love, about, well, I actually don't want to get ahead of myself. So 3 summers ago, I started a job in Indianapolis at a small law firm that actually handled insurance claims. Indianapolis was my home. I was born and raised in the Hoosier State, so this job was kind of, safe, something I could handle. The usual mundane office duties like filing and faxing and signing for things, taking notes. But, I couldn't complain. The people that ran it were really nice. There were 2 lawyers actually, and my boss was Albert Bernstein. And, he was like one of those good old Jewish boys that smoked cigars and, talked through his nose and called everybody kiddo or babe, even if they were only 5 or 10 years younger than him. God, he had the most obnoxious wife, actually, who would never acknowledge my name when she called, "My husband, please," every time. It was kind of obnoxious, yeah. But, no, it was good, and I can't complain about it. I was hoping maybe this path would take me to the next step, meeting that guy. I was 25 years old, and I was ready to meet that one law boy that was fresh out of an Ivy League school. My parents wanted me to go back to school, but, no. Guys and I were kind of like water and motor oil. I was the water and they were the motor oil. And for some reason, I always liked the ones that were extra thick and highly flammable. Yeah, at that time, I was actually dating a guy named Jeff, one of those chatty computer nerds that, always talked about World of Warcraft or Star Wars. And he was extra thick. About a month into the job, Mr. Bernstein came up and told me about this insurance conference that he was going to go to in Tampa, Florida. And he'd gone on lots of trips before, but this was actually the first time he finally asked me to come along. So, at first I thought I'd make up something and say I was unavailable for some reason. But I don't know, I kind of felt like I was only fooling myself. Jeff and I needed some distance, and I only had my cat Lucy to worry about, so I don't know, I thought what the heck, and handed the scooper to my mom and got on the plane. We left at 6 a.m. bright and early from the Indianapolis airport, and it was my first flight that I'd taken since I was 7 years old when I went to Greenville, Alabama, and I don't know, my boss had said that he had flown a million times, and I don't know, he very well could have. I remember getting on the plane, and God, every time the air would just jostle, the whole plane would move, and I felt like I was just going to lose my stomach. And the only thing that would bring me back down was the thought of this amazing paradise that I'd never seen right down below. So we touched down, and we took a cab together to the Doubletree Airport. And I remember just getting lost in this cab ride, looking outside at the swaying palm trees and the amazingly blue skies and all the people outside, in their flip-flops and bikinis, and just kind of hit me that I know all he wanted to do was be inside all day. His plan was to get in early Monday morning, catch the afternoon session, stay at the same hotel that the conference was being at so that we could save time, and then, prepare for the full day on Tuesday and hop back on the evening flight back up north. Kind of go, go, go. No time to explore. So the day started. I remember the first conference, oh my gosh, the seminars were just mind-numbing about, tax reform and new insurance forms and, embracing technology so that you can better your law firm. I took all the notes for him as he smoked stogies all day long and drank coffee and, gossiped with his old law buddies he hadn't seen in a long time. And finally at 5 o'clock, it was all over. Conference came to an end, and he came up to me, and I remember he asked about my note-taking and then said, hey, we're going to go ahead and have dinner in the lobby at 6 with 2 old lawyer buddies that he had wanted to catch up with from New York. I peeked over his shoulder, hoping to see the twin of, Pierce Brosnan and Craig or Clive Owen, or just some handsome man massaging my eyes. And unfortunately, it was Woody Allen and Ben Stein chewing on some stogies. So that was fun. I so wanted to say no and that I was going to go do something else, but I opened my mouth and the only words that came out were, "See you at the lobby at 6. Yeah. Anyway, so I went up to my room and, just kind of took a second in my quiet, smoke-free haven, finally, and then looked out the window at paradise, sitting there just, I was so frustrated. I remember I was wanting to be every person that walked by me. I wanted to get out there and explore this amazing place that I'd never been. And I started thinking, okay, what can I come up with? What am I going to do? So I kind of searched the room for answers, looked around, and my godsend, I saw a bottle of Midol that I had taken out. I gave him a call and I said, hey, Mr. Bernstein, I'm really not feeling well. And I remember with his little nasally voice, he just kept saying, no, come to dinner, meet these people. And the minute I mentioned the word cramps, he was just, oh, I hope you feel better. I'll see you in the morning. And that was that. Finally. I was so excited. I got into the shower. I stepped out. Oh, I just started thinking of everything I was going to do that night in this place. And next thing was wardrobe. So I opened up my suitcase, which of course I had completely overpacked because I had no idea what to expect. I had brought in business suits and sundresses and pretty much 2 or 3 of everything. And I tossed the suits aside and started thinking, what could I wear? Something classy yet sexy, something, not too overstated but noticeable, something touristy but not too touristy, And I thought, sundress. Sundress would be absolutely perfect for this weather. So then I had to choose the color, of course, blue, yellow, or pink. And, I thought something that would be understated and sweet yet flow, I'd have to go for the pink. And then the shoes, of course. And I remember I put on these yellow flats that, I just thought they'd be comfortable to walk in yet classy, looking like I didn't actually put all the time and effort that I actually did into the outfit. And I was ready to go. So I stepped out of the hotel room, went completely out of the way because I did not want to go by the restaurant. God forbid he see me walking in this pink sundress, knowing I obviously don't have cramps. I remember leaving like I was some criminal trying to get out and, make sure I don't see any smoke anywhere because that'd be my exit point. I'd be caught. And I stepped outside and just, I remember the air just hit my lungs and I was, I just couldn't believe it. I was finally out here in this amazing place. And now I just absolutely had nowhere to go. I had no idea which way to go. I looked up and down the streets and of course hotels lined each street as far as I could see. And the 2 distant blocks at either side looked pretty much the same. So a couple people in suits kind of passed me from the right. So I thought, I'm going to go the opposite way. I walked down and I finally reached this distant cross street and I couldn't even see the hotel really in my hindsight. But I realized I had completely chosen the right path because cars zoomed by. There was this big mall, lots of restaurants and shops. I kind of looked around and to see where I wanted to go, and this bakery caught my eye, actually, Java Hut. And it was, nothing special. It was located actually between a pet groomer and a tanning salon, but I don't know, it kind of felt like there was this local feel about it, and that's all that I wanted to do, was just be this local in Florida for just one day of my life. I remember going in and it was so busy, actually. Families were there eating with their kids and people were there reading the newspaper, reading books. I went up and I ordered a turkey avocado on 3 cheese bread, I remember. And so I went over to get my iced tea, looked for somewhere to sit in this crazy busy place, and I actually lucked out. I looked over just as I took my first sip and there were 3 tables put together and the middle couple was getting up to leave. So I snagged the table and just began to eat my food and just take in the surroundings. I'm a complete people watcher, so I definitely had fun. There was this great couple next to me and they were, middle-aged married couple. I think that was their teenage daughter probably that was with them. Very cute girl. And then all of a sudden legal jargon just kind of overwhelmed me and I lost focus and found myself staring at these 2 guys completely overly dressed. One guy in this black shirt with way too many buttons undone, and another guy in, University of Florida sweatshirt. And they were talking all about the insurance claims and law, and I just found myself immersed in it, and I was listening, and I just felt like I was right back at the conference with Mr. Bernstein taking notes from him again. Except this time my notepad was my plate, and I knew I had to stop thinking about it. I had to just shut them out somehow and find somebody else. So I started to look around the room, and I remember thinking, what's that little girl up to sitting next to me? I look over to see her smile, and she's gone. And it was so weird because I didn't even remember actually anybody getting up. And then all of a sudden, this smell just enveloped me, and I just felt like a deer in the headlights. And I look over, and it's this amazing scent. And casually to my right where the girl's parents were sitting, I noticed a man had took his place. So I'm thinking that sometime they, somehow slid in, and I guess I was completely overwhelmed and I didn't even notice it. I really wanted to stare at this guy, and I knew there was something about him. His scent was just intoxicating, but I obviously couldn't. So I had to do it subtly and, nonchalantly. So as I started to take a bite out of the second half of my sandwich, I kind of snuck a peek. And as I looked back around, I only looked at him for a second. I just started to paint this picture of him in my mind. He was so handsome, and he had these piercing green eyes. And then I started to realize that when I looked at him, he was focused down on something that I must have missed. So I thought, God, how am I going to look at this? How am I going to figure out what he's looking at? I want to know what this man's doing. And I snuck a peek down, and I saw his coffee cup. And then a little further down, I noticed he was sketching something. It looked like a bird of some sorts. I don't know, but it just jumped off the page with these amazing color pigments. And I just all of a sudden realized that my glance had kind of turned into a stare, and I was so embarrassed. I started to look up just to see if he noticed. And of course, his green eyes were staring right back at me. So it was completely obvious. I had no idea what to say, so I just kind of smiled uncomfortably as my senses were screaming to say something intelligent. And he broke the silence. He said, "Hi there," in this really soft and calm voice. And I kind of lost my breath for a second there, but I definitely finally managed to say something. I still, to this day, there's something about him. His name was Alex, and he'd been living in Florida for about 10 years now. He'd gotten a full scholarship for art, and apparently the people in Florida that had the money loved buying all of his paintings that were all about the scenery. And so he decided to stay. And this was his local hangout. I kind of asked him about the drawing, and he had said that, I don't know, that it was something that inspired him. And all I could think of, was this somewhere around us that I had no idea existed? I finally got up the nerve to ask him about it, and he actually had kind of gave me this little smirk that I just knew that, yes, this was somewhere in his memory, somewhere in his mind, someplace that I've never seen that would just amaze me. I asked him about painting a little bit more, and he kind of nonchalantly pointed to something up on the wall. As I looked over, apparently it was his painting hanging there, and it was just, he was so talented and just so passionate about everything that he was doing. And I remember that the minute we started talking, he gave all of that passion and energy that he was doing while he was sketching into me. And I've just never had somebody look at me like that before and really be interested, in what I was saying. So then he said these 5 little words that I remember to this day. I can take you there. God, those 5 words changed my life. I remember just pondering, and of course my brain said, no, guard up. Do not go anywhere with somebody you've known less than 15 minutes. But I don't know, there was just something that came over me that, I don't know, I had to go with him. And before my brain could calculate the pros and cons and, make my decision for me, I just opened my mouth and 4 little letters came out of me. Sure. How could I say no to him? We got up, and I noticed he was actually tall. He was like 6 feet tall, not too tall to be mocked or anything like that, but just tall enough for me, for my height. And we walked out of the room, and I remember noticing that he was wearing this pink Lacoste polo shirt, actually, and plaid shorts and little flip-flops. Completely flirty and nothing like me and, the people that I know back in the Hoosier State. So we walked out together, and I just remember, I remember feeling different when we walked out, different than how I walked in. And he grabbed my hand as we tried to scurry across the street, and I remember thinking how, how amazing his hands felt in mine, how warm his hand was, and how strong he was leading me through this traffic. And then we finally stop, and I look over, and there's a red moped. And it was his, of course. Looks like it was made for a kid, not even big enough to be able to carry a guy and his catch, let alone me and him. But he swore to me that it was the safest way to travel on the streets of Florida. Only way to go. So I said, okay. And he gave me his one and only helmet like a gentleman. And I strapped it on and we pulled out of the parking lot. And I remember going right and left, dodging and weaving through all these cars, with no protection around us, obviously. But I just held on tight, and the smell of his cologne just, I don't know, for some reason it made me feel completely safe. We were driving for a while, and then I finally remember seeing these signs for Clearwater Beach. And I, kind of tapped him on the shoulder. Hey, are we going there? And he's like, no, all the tourists go there. I'm taking you somewhere that's special. We kept going and going up the hills and around, and we started passing these just beautiful beachfront homes, $1 million homes they had to be. And as we kept going further and further, they started getting more and more spread apart. And we kind of started to slow and veer to the left, got a little bumpy, so I held on a little tighter. And all of a sudden, I kind of happened to peek a glance over his shoulder, and I see this sand dune right ahead of us, and squealed because I knew there was no way that this little tiny moped with this puny engine could make it up. He yelled for me to hold on, and I did, and he gunned it, and I have no idea to this day how, but we made it over. And as soon as we hit the other side, he just stopped abruptly, and I thought, oh my God, it died. We're stuck out here. This moped is puny engine, didn't make it anywhere. But I started to look around to assess the scene, to see where we were at, see what was wrong. And the minute I turned towards the water, I knew why we stopped, I remember we got off, tucked in our flip-flops, took them off, let the sand go through our toes, and walked around, and it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen in my life. Words don't describe it. All I can say is that's why I think he painted it, because it's something that was just unbelievable. And I remember saying, how did you find this place? Oh my God, this is so amazing. And I remember to this day, he stopped and looked at me and said, I love finding the beautiful things in the world, and especially you. And I thought, oh my God, did this guy just really say that to me? This guy that I just met, piercing green eyes, amazingly tanned face, beautiful hair, and a romantic. Everything beautiful in the world, especially me. And before I knew it, he grabbed my hands and pulled me close, and we were kissing, and the waves were crashing, and the seagulls were squawking and landing all around us. And before I knew it, we were making love right there on the beach. Something, I've never done anything like that before, especially with some guy that I just barely met like 15 minutes ago. And I remember when we were done feeling this, this immense calmness just come over me. And he kind of rolled away and and grabbed a sketch pad and started sketching again. And I thought, oh my God, all I want to do is just hold you in this moment here right now and not ever let you go. And just then, the sun finally set over the ocean, and he offered to take me back to my hotel room, take me back to reality. We got on his moped, and all I could think of is right now, all I can do is hold on to him tight. I so didn't want to go back at that time. I remember as we were driving, we crossed over a street with 3 business people. And one of them was a woman in a chic suit. And I thought to myself, I could live here. I could do this. I wonder what it would be like to live here and work at a law firm in Florida, in this place that I'd only dreamed about. And I remember we pulled up to the hotel, and I remember him asking me, why don't I move to Florida? And even though I thought about it and thought about being that woman, and I wanted to, I also thought about, my life. My life is in Indianapolis. My job is there. And I remember seeing this car off in the distance, kind of smoky old car. And the smoke just reminded me of the cigar smoke from Mr. Bernstein and my life there. And, I think he knew when I said, I'm sorry. And he told me that, I lit up there. I really came to life, and he knew that I'd be happier here in Florida. And my senses were just wanting to say, yes, I do. I want to be here with you, and I want to change my life. And there's something new and exciting that I just wanted to take and run with. And then my brain kicked in, And I don't know, like an artist, I think he kind of knew that after his last brushstroke that he had to just let the masterpiece go. And he kissed my hand and rode off into the dark. And then I walked back into my hotel room with this sinking feeling in my stomach. I remember getting up the next day. I went to the conference. Mr. Bernstein, of course, asked how I was doing. And all I could say is, I'm fine. Because I was more miserable then than I think I'd ever had been. The day was so long and it just drug on. And I remember getting on the plane and thinking to myself, just looking one last glimpse. I just looked out the window of the plane as we left and just thought, where's the beach? Where's Alex? And I didn't see any of them, of course. So we went back and, everything was kind of the same. Nothing changed. My life in Indianapolis was what it was. I kept working for Mr. Bernstein, but all I could think about was Florida and Alex and, I don't know, this entirely new life that I'd never thought ever would exist. And finally, after about a month, I don't know, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to take action, and I got on a plane and I went to Florida, and I wanted to find Alex. Of course, I had no idea where to look or a neighborhood to search. I had no number for him. So I don't know. All I had was our painting that I kept with me every day. He'd given me this amazing painting. He'd slipped it in my back pocket, and I realized that night when we were sketching, and all I wanted to do was hold him after we made love on the beach, he was actually sketching me into the picture that I saw him draw in the coffee shop. So I held it close to me every day, and then I thought, there you go. Okay, I will start there. I will go back to the place that we met, and if it's meant to be, I will find him there and we'll reconnect. And I remember, oh God, my stomach was just up and down, and I was fluttering and just hoping I would walk in and see him sitting in that exact same spot. And I did, but he wasn't there. Some old woman and man were bickering at the same table that he was sitting at. Defeated again, I sat down, not knowing what to do next, and then it hit me. I looked up and I'd seen his painting on the wall, and I asked a waitress that was cleaning the table, do you know this artist? Do you know who painted this? And I couldn't believe it. She, Alex. And I said, yes, oh my God, Alex, yes. I need to find him. I need to find out where he is. And then she kind of looked at me like I had said, like I had given her bad news, that I'd said something wrong or, life altering. And she just looked at me and said, I'm sorry, but Alex died 3 weeks ago. He was hit by a truck on his moped. I was speechless. I had no idea what to say or what to do. I kind of stumbled out of the coffee shop, and I thought to myself, would it be different? If I would have stayed, would it have been different? Would he have not been on the moped that day, or would my life have changed? I don't know. All I know is that every day I think about Alex, and I think about this life that I could have had. All I could do when I heard that news was get back on a plane. I couldn't bear to be in Florida without him. So I went back to my mundane life once again. And that was 3 years ago, and nothing's really changed. I always think to myself what my life would have been like and how much better it would have been. But I don't know. I guess you can't change the past.